Hello and welcome to Magic Gathering Strat. This is Tobias with a deck tech video for Lantern Control, and this is the card that gives the name to the deck. It's Lantern of Insight, an uncommon out of the Kamigawa block, and it costs only 1 mana and it reveals both top cards of the player's library, and you can sacrifice it to make a player shuffle his or her library. So it doesn't do much on its own, but you get an information on what you will draw and what your opponent will draw. And with this information there comes some mill effects. You are running Ghoul Caller's Bell to mill away the top card of each library, your own and the one of your opponent. And you're running the Codex Shredder, which mills away a card from an opponent only. And the Codex Shredder has an important second ability. For 5 mana you can sacrifice the Codex Shredder and return a card from your graveyard to your hand. So you often are milling yourself, really often, because you want targets in your library to return to your hand, either with the Codex Shredder or with the Academy Ruins. The next very important card to the deck is the Ensnaring Bridge, which is a 3 mana artifact that stops creatures from attacking if they have a greater power than the number of cards in your hand. So the basic plan, basic game plan is to empty your hand to go hellbent and slam down Ensnaring Bridge and never be attacked by opposing creatures, and make sure that your opponent never draws any good draw by Ghoul Caller's Bell and Codex Shredder. And with this effect, with these 4 cards, you mill him out. That's the main route to victory here. And you need some control effects to make this all happen. You have Spells Guide available to you, which can absorb quite a lot of burn spells, and it serves as an early blocker if you don't have your Ensnaring Bridge ready, and it absorbs artifact destruction, and you can get it back by the Codex Shredder's second ability or by the Academy Ruins that lets you put artifacts from your graveyard on the top of your library. This prevents you from milling yourself with Ghoul Caller's Bell as well. Yeah. Spells Guide. Second very important thing is Picing Needle. There are a tremendous amount of Picing Needle targets in Modern. It's especially good when playing against Tron, because you can needle every Planeswalker, you can needle Ugin, you can needle Karn, you can needle the Expedition map that he's playing, you can needle any fetch land. If you play needle and your opponent doesn't fetch in response, it sometimes is a very good effect, very good plan to needle their fetch land, so that you eventually and effectively have destroyed the land because it becomes useless. And Picing Needle is very good when playing against Affinity because of the many man lands they have. Next card you have for a little control and for a little card advantage is Pirate's Spellbomb. You can gun down an annoying creature in response to something, or you can draw a card, and of course it enables Metalcraft for Mox Opal. Mox Opal is one of your very few blue mana sources in the deck, and yeah, as I said, you need Metalcraft for it. And you have Glimmer Voids in your mana base. Glimmer Voids and Mox Opal are the only blue mana sources, but the only card you need blue mana for is the Academy Ruins, so that works out. And all of these cards, all cards that I showed you, are colorless, and because of this, Ancient Steerings, another 1 mana card, is very good. You can basically, it does scry 5, draw a card, and you can draw whatever you want. You can fix your mana base, you can search for an artifact, and you can dig for the Ensnaring Bridge. So tremendously good card here. And you're running 1 forest. I guess the forest is a Path to Exile target. And yeah, with this you have a sound engine of digging through your library. So here come a few more control elements. In the early game, when your opponent has a full hand, you have to remove silver bullets from their hands, and for this you're running Sword Seizes. and you're running Inquisition of Kozilek. I run a total of 6 copies to control the early play of my opponent, and it's working fine for me. Another important card is Abrupt Decay, especially after sideboarding against white decks. Abrupt Decay is one of the few cards that can deal with an opponent's Stony Silence, but it's an important card in the first game as well. You can kill silver bullets with it, and you don't have to worry about it being countered. So this is a very important card. You run 2 copies of it. I forgot to mention the mana base, Ghost Quarter, pretty important too, to kill man lands and to kill Ursatron lands. And then there is one weird card, it's the Girapur Ether Grid, but it's a very good card. If you can get it online, you can tap 2 of your untapped artifacts to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. And Mox Opal, Codex Shredder, Ghoul Caller Spell, Lantern of Insight, Pising Needle, Pirate Spellbomb, Spellskite, Ensnaring Bridge. Everything is an artifact, and most of it costs just 1 mana, so you're bound to have 6 to 8 artifacts in play when you find your Girapur Ether Grid, and this gives you a second win option. Sometimes you can win by damaging your opponent and just killing him by plain damage directly to his face, and of course you can stop his creatures. And important against Tron, there's the last card, but important against many other decks as well, Surgical Extraction. You need a way to deal with Emrakul, and this is it. Because when you mill Emrakul, or the other Eldrazi, or some cards that don't see modern play as often, like Progenitus or Blightsteel Colossus, they will trigger an effect that shuffles the library of your opponent back into his... shuffles the graveyard, I'm sorry. It will trigger an effect that shuffles the graveyard back into the library, and by this effect you can never win by milling. So you need Surgical Extraction against those decks to remove the Eldrazi, to remove Emrakul in response to the trigger. Should work fine. Never had the chance to play against Tron until now, but I will see how this works. Alternatively, I can just kill them by plain damage. So that's the main deck. Here is the sideboard. Sideboard is pretty straightforward. I like the Torpor Orb. It prevents creatures from triggering abilities when they enter the battlefield. So you shut down Snapcaster Mage, you shut down a lot of creatures like Kitchen Finks and Restoration Angel and Flicker Wisp or whatever. So pretty neat card, nice to have. Sun Droplet is your against burn, and it's important to note that if you manage to get 2 Sun Droplets into play, so you have 2 Sun Droplets in play, you can use your Pain Land, you can use your Llanowar Wastes to generate life, because each Sun Droplet will trigger separately to the damage you deal to yourself for having colored mana, black or green mana. And by this you gain a net life out of it. So pretty neat card. Gravedigger's Cage is against Snapcaster Mages as well, because you mill a lot of cards. Snapcaster Mage will have a lot of targets in an opponent's graveyard. It's good against Lingering Souls, and it's good against Persist creatures, so pretty nice card. And often you swap it for the Pising Needles. Both cost 1 mana, and often players don't have Planeswalkers, so you don't need the Pising Needles, and then Gravedigger's Cage is a good and cheap alternative. Welding Jar, you're running 3 copies in the sideboard, is there to protect against artifact hate after the first game. Pretty nice card to have, also costs only 0 mana, is good with the Girapur Ether Grid as well. Bow of Nihilir is interesting. You can put +1/+1 counters on creatures, which is important because Ensnaring Bridge doesn't stop creatures with 0 power from attacking, and Affinity has quite a lot of creatures with 0 power. They have the Wall Scourge that will trigger Battlecry effects when it's attacking, and they have the Ornithopters that are 0/2 flyers, and their Cranial Plating can be equipped in combat, so they can pretty easily kill you with Cranial Plating, but with this card you can put +1/+1 counters on their creatures to prevent them from attacking when you have Ensnaring Bridge active. Also pretty good against exalted creatures like Noble Hierarch. Second mode is interesting. Both Annihilator deals 2 damage to target creature with flying. You can gun down Ornithopters and the like. And it's interesting because you can gain 3 life. And the fourth mode, and I guess this is the reason for the card being in the sideboard, is for the mirror match, because you can prevent yourself from being milled by putting cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. So a Swiss pocket knife, pretty neat card. A little bit hard to cast with double green, but okay. Nature's Claim. I think Seal of Primordial might be an alternative here. Seal of Primordial is better against Blood Moon, but Nature's Claim is a fine card too, especially against burn. So you have to decide what you fear more. Are you fearing burn more than you want to destroy your own artifacts to gain life? Or do you fear Blood Moon? Then you need to run Seal of Primordial. Pyroclasm is against decks that run a lot of creatures with a toughness of 2 or less, and there is a pretty large amount of it. And then you play Pyroclasm, pretty good against Affinity again, not so good against Merfolk or Zoo, but you can stop these kinds of decks with the Ensnaring Bridge a lot better. And then is the last card, an Ancient Grudge. Again, a good card for the mirror match, a good card against Affinity or Tron. Yes, and the sideboard is pretty much against the decks that I mentioned. You don't need much against Control, because the main deck is very good against Control. This list was not built by me. I copied a list from TC decks. I'm showing you the original. The list I'm playing was played by, where's the name? No, that's wrong. I'm sorry. This is the list. The list I'm playing was played by Oliver Salton in a 45 player event, and he made it to position 7. So here's the list. It's easier to copy this way, and this is an interesting cost statistic. You see that a tremendous amount of cards, 28 cards, cost only 1 mana, and you have only 5 cards that cost 2 mana, so most of the time you can ignore Spell Snare, and you have only 5 cards that cost 3 mana, one of them in the sideboard, and you have 5 cards that cost 0 mana. I'm not so sure if this is correct. No, this is the main deck. The 5th card that costs 3 mana is the Girapu Isagrid. Okay, so this is the deck list. I'm having fun with it. I hope you enjoy the videos that I'm making with it. Thank you for watching. See you soon.